Welcome to the Piltdown Superman podcast. Today's episode,
Poisoning the Well.
good chance you're going to hear some background noise. They're scraping up some of New York's global warming off the ground on January 26, 2014. But oh well, we'll get on with it. Poisoning the well. That's a really interesting logical fallacy where you could consider it a preemptive strike. Similar to ad hominems, where it's an attack against the person, and it is also related to the genetic fallacy where somebody will say, your sources are no good. I don't want to hear anything from a creationist or a Christian ministry or something, so they're going to rule it out just on the basis of its source. Poisoning the well is a preemptive strike, which you sort of attack the person or what they believe in, their sources, anything like that, ahead of time. One thing to keep these podcasts from being just sterile or clinical is that I'm drawing from my own experiences or things that I've observed. In this case, I have been the victim of poisoning the well many times. For instance, at the place where I work, the managers do not act very managerial. They don't act professionally. One time I caught one of the managers saying, and I asked him, well, I'm being talked about at the main office, which happens to be in another city altogether, and he admitted, yes, I'm talked about there. Turns out they've got me cut, dried, pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, and numbered. They've got me all figured out, and they haven't even talked to me. They don't know me. They just share gossip, spread rumors, engage in prejudicial conjecture, ad hominems, and that sort of thing. So this poisoning the well policy of the company has worked against them because I have had ideas that I've wanted to offer to it to save them thousands of dollars, help them with the software, solve some problems and that sort of thing. But because it's coming from me, they don't want to hear it. And I'm not the only victim of this at this place. Somebody told me that if you dispute an error that's been assigned to you, right or wrong, you are labeled as a troublemaker. So they've got poisoning the well in high gear at this company. In another place, I'll have some of my stalkers like Haywire. They will go and send out a flock of emails. They'll spam everybody whose address that they have. I had to block him, and apparently he still sends them out. But he will just go on about what a
Bad man.
I am. Yeah, well, I've already admitted I'm a bad man. I have done rotten things in the past, and I'll do rotten things in the future. I try not to, but it happens. It's one of those pitfalls of being human. But they'll go and spread this kind of stuff to poison the well, to sway opinions of other people against someone else. It's also very similar to gossip. Just go and talk about somebody, then when they come into the room, you're not going to listen to what they have to say because your impressions of them have been influenced or affected by what somebody has told you about them. One of the most amazing and low-life personal attacks I've had was when somebody was going around spreading rumors about me that my wife is dead, but she was surprised to find that out. He would put it in print, and I've got screenshots to prove it. Go and tell people that my wife is dead? First of all, that attempt at poisoning the well is thoroughly desperate and ludicrous in my opinion, but also it strikes me that somebody who's going to use a deceased spouse, whether real or not, to use that concept as an attempt to poison the well against another person, that somebody like that is really just not much of a man, in my opinion. Many of these logical fallacies are based on having discussions or reasoned arguments in the real sense, not just the yelling at each other sense of modern usage of argument. So when you're going to have an argument and somebody's going to poison the well, you can spot that and either deal with it or call the thing off. However, it's also just something that's used in social matters, interpersonal relationships. I have likened it to somebody who's angry and they'll go and act like school children who've been caught by the headmaster smoking in the boys' room, and then they're mad and they're going to go and get people to join them in their crusade of hatred against the headmaster, get all the students to turn against him, although they're not going to have much effect, but they're going to get their egos satisfied apparently. And then people will go on a poisoning the well campaign online. They'll do preemptive strikes of sending emails. I've had this sort of thing happen many times. People who are on to atheopaths will see these kinds of attempts for what they are and just simply dismiss them. Now, poisoning the well, it doesn't have to be something that's very cut and dried. It doesn't even have to be true, like I mentioned with my allegedly deceased wife. Even if something is true, if it's used ahead of time to influence other people, then it can be detrimental. Now, you can also use it as just conversation. For instance, well, this guy, he's a very angry atheist. He's trying to carve a name for himself on the internet. I've seen he's trying to do other stuff. He's a lousy artist. He's a failed musician. Can't reason his way out of a wet paper bag. So he's not even worth debating or spending any time in a discussion with. I'm using that as just as a bad example. And even though I'm dismissing it, if I had named him, I would have been poisoning the well anyway. Even though you can see what I'm doing, it's still trying to get an emotional reaction or influence somebody. Or for that matter, having a reaction in a courtroom. How many times have you watched one of these legal shows where somebody is saying, the jury will disregard that last remark? Well, the damage has been done. It's been said. So they, in a sense, poisoned the well there. Those angry militant atheists that will quote mine the Bible to find things wrong with it and make excuses against God, why they hate him, why they hate the Bible, which is amazing. They claim they don't believe in him, but they spend a lot of time arguing and hating God, the Bible, Christians, Jesus, and so on. Now, when you get some of these quote mining missions that they go on, it would be nice if they paid some attention to the emphasis that the Bible places on words. Here's a little thing for you. There are 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. Read one chapter a day. Aside from the emphasis on gain wisdom through God's Word, look for the emphasis on words themselves, how they're used. There's all kinds of talk about whoever spreads slander is a fool, and things that you say, how they can be detrimental. God has given us words, and all through the Bible you'll find out you can build people up, you can tear them down, you will be held accountable for your words. The Christian has no business poisoning the well. So if you're going to express an opinion, be very careful in how you go about it.